Nightreign's first network test has come and gone, and it has left me with opinions. A terrible thing. Because I am afflicted with the curse of YouTuber, I will be sharing these opinions with you. To come right out the gate with it, I don't think Nightreign is worth $40. I especially don't think it's worth $55 for the special DLC edition of the game. I also really don't like that they're pre-selling DLC for the first time with this game. It feels kind of like they're embracing the same scummy practices that their publisher, Bandai Namco, love to push onto their other titles. As much as I would love to purely point the finger at Bandai Scamco for this monetization fucky, it brings to mind an incident from my dark checkered history as a gamer, where a beloved developer's monetization got slowly and incrementally worse over time. Yeah, Destiny 2. Back when they were owned by Activision, and back when Activision wasn't owned by Microsoft, the entire Destiny community would look at the horrible monetization schemes and insane pricing of Eververse and go, well, it's because of Activision, surely. Then Bungie split off from Activision, and we found out, oh, wait, no, those monetization decisions were totally not fucking Activision. It was Bungie all along. I don't want to be hyperbolic and assume that's what's happening right now with Fromslopware. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that it was, 100% Bandai Scamco who made them pre-sell all their DLC in a premium edition. But the rest of the game doesn't really give the greatest impression or make me feel like this was an especially well-crafted product. It feels a little bit like a cash grab. Enough about monetization though, let's talk about the actual game mechanics. First and foremost is the decision not to allow you to control your bird as you fly into the map. I don't understand this at all from a gameplay perspective. It feels kind of like it has to be some kind of engine limitation, because I don't think any human would design it this way intentionally. Like, the bird even wiggles a little bit when you try to move it, for fuck's sake. Like, it wants to let you fly anywhere other than one of the same two starting camps that you dropped off at in. Which brings us nicely to the second issue I have with this game, the randomization. There is no map randomization. I initially thought that minor locations like the ruins and the flask upgrade churches were randomized, but upon reviewing my footage, it looks like there were two set maps with randomized loot pools, not a randomized map. I really hope that this is just for the network test. In the final game, there are either a lot more maps that cycle, or minor locations get moved around in every run. As it stands now, it doesn't feel like there's a ton of variety in each run. Looting is interesting. It feels insanely RNG based whether or not you get something actually useful, and I know that's sort of the point for a roguelite, but most of the more popular ones let you shape your run a little bit more before going in. My favorite is Risk of Rain 2, with the wonderful blue portal and our friend the Newt. Being able to choose blue items and your next stage are both very impactful on your run, and the void fields basically guarantee enough items to become a functional build, if you can survive. I don't feel like Nightreign has an equivalent to either, so you're just sort of stuck with what you get. This is made worse by not being able to pick which stats you level up. If you only get like dexterity weapons on Wilder, for example, it would be great to be able to level up his dexterity to fit the loot that you find, instead of just having to go find something more suited to your character. Stats are very opaque in general in Nightreign. We know that they exist. Several of the relics rewarded from completing runs have things that say +2 dexterity or +1 intelligence, but we don't get to see our stats anywhere else in game. The closest thing that we get are these bars that tell us how good our character is with a weapon. It's baffling that they don't even give us a letter to show which stats we scale best with. Speaking of the reward system, the relics as they're presented in the network test are terrible. They would be better if they weren't color-coded, but as they are now, most of the time you end up getting completely useless items. Let's take a look at this one, for example, the Polished Drizzly Stone. Looks great, right? It has a unique passive for Duchess too, so you would think that it would be equipable by Duchess. It is not. I really hope that in the final game there's some way to change the color of the relics so they're actually usable, but in the version that I played they mostly were not impactful because I wasn't able to equip them for the characters they were for. In my 8-ish hours of playtime, I never got a relic with a Wilder passive, despite playing him the whole time. Yes, I'm salty. So, not looking great so far by my personal experience. I mean that in a mechanical sense and a visual one though, with the reused assets not looking amazing. Let's move on though onto stuff that I did like. The combat is still your good old Elden Ring combat with the addition of a new super sprint button that the game calls a surge sprint. It replaces the crouch button from Elden Ring and is completely separate from the base sprint. Using it in combat drains about half of your current stamina, so it isn't really a replacement for a running attack, but you can use it to decent effect as an evasive move. Weapons have some new moveset that are in general a little faster than their base game Elden Ring counterparts, and there's a few new weapon arts that you can find on weapons around the game world. The biggest difference here though is the addition of abilities and ultimates. I personally played Wilder for pretty much the whole test, so my thoughts about abilities are probably shaped by that. Keep that bias in mind. I don't really mind the abilities one way or the other. I think the grapple hook is fun and while there's ult, the giant fuck-off cannon is satisfying to land and does good damage for its cooldown. The targeting for abilities is a little bit funky. Holding triangle and R2 to aim my grapple hook makes me claw up, but overall that's a fairly minor complaint. I think they're a fun addition. I was initially a little hesitant to see Overwatch ultimates in my Souls-like, but the implementation is fun, so I guess it's okay. Still feels a little out of place though. I don't mind the Fortnite circle. I don't really have any complex thoughts on it. It worked better than I anticipated, and I don't hate it. Last on the docket are the bosses. The 5 main bosses in the network test are the Centipede Demon, Demi-Human Queen and Swordsman, Not Morgott, the fucking Draconic Tree Sentinel, and Gladius, the new dog boss. I enjoyed what they did with the Centipede Demon. His facelift was pretty effective, and the new mechanic where you cut bits of him off that wriggle around the arena is a nice touch. The Demi-Human Queen and Swordsman exist. I think they're probably the weakest of the end-of-day bosses in Nightreign. They basically just do the same stuff you saw back in Shadow of the Earth Tree. Not Morgott is a fun fight. I like his crazy new bleed attacks. Otherwise, there's not much new about it. It's largely the same fight from Elden Ring. Good boss. The Draconic Tree Sentinel in Friends is the only of the end-of-day bosses that I wasn't able to beat. Every time I got to him, my build wasn't quite up to snuff, and the 3 horsemen murdered me. I'm not sure if he got any new moves, I died pretty quickly, but his new friends are more than enough to set the fight apart from the base Elden Ring counterpart. Fuck this guy. Fuck his friends too. I'm not molding, I promise, for sure. Fuck that guy. The final and featured boss of Nightrein's playtest is Gladius, Beast of Night. I think he's a fun boss, and I don't think he's too hard. Sort of hard to get a gauge on difficulty though because of how much impact your loot makes. Depending on how good your drops are, it can either feel like you're an overleveled endgame character or a gnat trying to fight God. In my case, every time I got to Gladius I felt pretty overpowered, so he didn't feel too hard. Overall, this experience felt kind of mediocre. It's not like I hated it or anything, I just am not sure it's worth the $55 asking price or even the $40 asking price without the pre-sale DLC. The version presented in this network test feels like it would be better suited as a $20 DLC to Elden Ring than as a standalone game. That said, I'm still going to buy it because I'm a sucker and I want to kill the other new bosses with my friends. That's my thoughts. Leave yours in the comments. I read literally all of them. Also, subscribe and stuff.